My time's up. I'll not recognize Representative Ansari, the ranking member, for her 5 minutes. You're going to yield. Okay, you're up, ma'am.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you to our witnesses for being here today. Being new to the committee, I really do want to dig in a little bit on some of the infrastructure challenges that we're experiencing as it relates to addressing the energy crisis that, like the chair, I share and feel the pressure of for my constituents in my home district. But I want to get down to some of the details of while we are, as Ms. Howell pointed out, energy independent and have been since 2018, why we are exporting more than we are importing to, in my view, the detriment of our constituents and addressing this energy crisis. But before I get there, I want to hone in a little bit, representing a coastal community, Maryland, Chesapeake Bay, really concerned about making sure that we are responsibly addressing some of these challenges. And Ms. Howell, thank you for bringing up the Deepwater Horizon disaster in the Gulf of Mexico. It's chilling to think what a similar disaster would look like for my constituents, for my state. It would be devastating. We talk about the economy, absolutely devastating, not just to the watermen and the fishing community, but so much of my economy relies on a clean and healthy Chesapeake Bay and ecosystem. So particularly interested in, the chair mentioned some lessons learned, and I would just like to kind of dig through some of those lessons. And this is for anybody on the panel, but can we talk about some of the lessons learned from the Deepwater Horizon disaster? How do we avoid that moving forward? How do we ensure that we're not robbing Peter to pay Paul here?
I'd like to take that up if I can. The lessons of Deepwater Horizon are myriad. I think the most important lesson is that the failure that day was due to one man's decision. And his decision was made to cut costs. It's all been documented very clearly. And his decision cost lives and horror to the Gulf of Mexico, the economies, the fishermen, the tourism, and so forth. When we looked at what could happen to the South Carolina coast in our organization, the important thing to remember is it's not like somebody just goes offshore and they drill a well and they go on home and everything's fine and we have more reserves. In order to support offshore drilling, you need onshore infrastructure, and the infrastructure has to go somewhere. And quite likely, it would end up in Winyah Bay, which is where I lived in South Carolina, or near Chesapeake Bay. So while I admire all the work that Port Fourchon has done over the years, even Port Fourchon is deeply at risk annually from hurricanes. It has been flooded many times. So all of the chemicals and infrastructure that is there is put underwater. I am particularly concerned for the East Coast, for the Chesapeake Bay, for Winyah Bay, and others that will have to suffer from the onshore impact and how that contrasts with our tourism economy. The Atlantic was developed as a tourist area, not like the Gulf. In 1953, the Gulf really started booming, and as a result, the Central and Western Gulf have become the oil field of today. We don't need that or want that in the Atlantic.
Thank you, Ms. Howell. To the rest of the panel, being new to this committee and new to energy policy, I'm particularly struck by this idea that we are exporting more than, we're importing, we are, thank you, we are importing 8.51 million barrels per day, but exporting 10.15 million barrels per day. I'm not quite sure the American people are understanding that we are energy independent and that we are exporting this significant resource out of the country. If you were explaining this to the average citizen, how do you respond to the fact that we're not keeping those resources stateside to the benefit of addressing these energy crises?
Congresswoman, I'll take the natural gas side of that. I think, and I'll mention on the crude oil side of that, I don't think our refineries are capable of processing the crude oil that we produce in this country, at least in the Permian Basin and other parts of the continental U.S. And so exporting that provides us with a source of revenue to the American people. And it's a product that we couldn't refine here in the U.S. On the natural gas front, we have more natural gas than we need in the U.S. We can export that natural gas. We can meet all of our exporting needs. We can also meet all of our energy demand needs with the natural gas we have. The problem is infrastructure. You have to be able to get that natural gas from the supply centers to the demand centers. If we can do that, then exporting that natural gas, just like crude oil, provides revenue to the American people. It allows us to produce. It allows the single atmosphere we have on this planet to experience fewer emissions because we do it cleaner than anybody else on the planet. And it benefits the American people as a whole.
May I just add to that, and Mr. Wilson, I'm sure you could speak to this. The natural gas that heats Chairman Stauber's home is likely not coming from the Gulf of Mexico, is it? Or would it come from any Gulf area or any offshore area? It comes from onshore. Is that correct?
I actually can't tell you where the natural gas comes that heats Mr. that
We will,
heats Congressman
we will only
Stauber's home.
take questions from the members. I appreciate that. Representative Elfreth, I want to apologize for not recognizing you by name. I apologize. It won't happen again.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and I yield back my